Hey Zen fam, 2023 has officially started on the channel. We've got the new green screen up. It's much closer, so that means I can zoom the camera out and hopefully I look a bit sharper for you. Yes! Haha! We've got the new ring light. So I've got the mic down here. Everything's really starting to come together with the technical specifications. This is obviously not the final form because there will probably be faults. I think there's a little bit of green screen gubbins happening here in the corner. We will fix that as we go along, but we need to get cracking with this video. So, as you've probably noticed through most console generations of PlayStation has tried over the years to give better and deeper immersion to the player, i.e. you and me. And with the original PlayStation, we had the first controller that had no sticks and felt unlike anything we'd ever had before. We never had this controller configuration. It was completely new. Everything else up until then had been like a little flat paddle. Some had rounded corners, some had squared corners. We did have the Mega Drive that sort of like was a rounded amorphous blob, but it was still flat. It was only until we got to PlayStation, maybe you could argue with Nintendo with a three-prong approach, but PlayStation seemed to be the ones that had those two prongs that you could wrap your hand around, and it just seemed to be the most perfect ergonomic shape for the time before we were even talking about ergonomics. And it was and then they brought in the sticks, and then the sticks were concave and convex, and there was a rumble form and there was a non-rumbling form. And we moved to PlayStation 2 where it was like they filtered with the design a little bit, and it wasn't too much different, but there definitely was a skip forward. And with PlayStation 2, we got the additional control of the PlayStation camera, or the Eye camera as it was at the time. And that's when your whole body could be the controller. So you would have like all the PlayStation iToy games where like you would move your body about and it would actually change what happened on screen. And that was really cool. And that was probably the first real home version on console of, body motion control video games. And it was really cool, and it was like, it wasn't tremendously deep or done a lot with by Sony, but they really tried. They did something new and something different, which is of course one of the things Sony is all about, is trying new things, different things. Then we moved to PlayStation 3, and that's when stuff really started to take off, because not only did you have the controls with the camera, but you also had the move functionality. And move with its nav, or two moves depending on the game, like the Fight Lights Out, which you've heard me talk about in the past and I still adore to this day, and I still think the critics did it dirty. There was so much you could do with the move, and the move was so long ago now. So long. I mean, it was great for the time, but when they came to PlayStation 4, they definitely passed their prime, although they were used as part of PSVR, but I'm getting there. Okay? So, we had the Move controllers, but one of the things you had with the Move controllers was not only could you do Move type games and, all the things like that Kung Fu chair game and all the rest of it and all the other crazy stuff, was you could take the Move and the nav, plug them into the Sharpshooter, which was a light gun game was a light gun for PlayStation 3, and it was a great light gun. I owned it for a number of years. It used to be in the channel avatar before I upgraded the channel avatar last year there to me now holding an aim controller, and it was great for for all the games it was designed for, and mostly what it was designed for, apart from SOCOM, was also MAG. Now, some of you have heard me talk about MAG in the past. MAG was this gigantic multiplayer game that at its height you could have like nearly 300 people in the same battle at the time, and it was just amazing, and I loved it. And it went away and I was sad, but they designed this so you could actually be in your lounge on your couch and you could aim properly, and you could do all the controls for the game on the nav, and you could have the the move there at the front end of the gun, and it was like it had an extendable stock. It was brilliant bit of kit. And then, you know, we kept on moving, we kept on doing different controllers, because when the PlayStation 3 Verse came out, it came out with a Dualsense that had no rumble. It was called something different at the time, I forget what it was called right now. But, you know, it had no rumble, because the rumble rights had moved away, but Sony tried to play it off, because, you know, Sony, they've got their corporate pride. That's what all corporations do, they try and play off the things that make them look a little less good. That's what people do. So corporations are made by people. These things are going to happen. Anyway, so we had we had attachments that you could put onto the move. There was even just a singular shooter one, which was just like a gun. I had that too for a short while before I was able to get hold of the sharpshooter. Then I got the sharpshooter, and then I basically sold the gun attachment, because I thought, well, I've got the sharpshooter, what do I need the gun for? And played that for many years. Then of course we moved to PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4, they completely remodeled the controller, as we all know. For the longest time I was like, are they ever going to get better than the PlayStation 4 control, because it was awesome. Yes, it did have its refresh a few years later, where they built the bit of the light bar into the top of the touchpad, made the battery a little bit better, made it a little bit grippier underneath, and you know, it just sort of gave it a little bit of a refresh, and it was, you know, obviously slightly better, but it wasn't like a massive leap forward, not as much as a leap forward it had been from the DualShock 3 to the DualShock 4. And of course, with DualShock, you know, we were able to still use the moves with PlayStation VR, but crucially, because PlayStation VR had to have move support to make it work, not only could you use the moves from PlayStation 3, but they reissued the move and changed the charging port, because when it first came out it was mini USB, and then they turned it to micro USB. So there was two SKUs of PlayStation Move controller. So if you went out and got the PlayStation Move controllers that were from PlayStation 3, they would still work with the PlayStation 4, but you had to make sure to have the cables to charge it, because there's not that many mini USB charging cables about these days. They just don't sell them anymore. I've still got a couple in the house. I don't know why. I don't have anything that uses it, but you never know. That's such a bloke thing. Oh, hang on to this cable because you never know. Anyway, so then they introduced the aim gun, and we were all like, hang on, some of us still own the sharpshooter, can we use that? And so no, different coding. It's like, but it's basically a move controller inside a casing. And so, but Sony wanted to sell their new product, and to be fair, to be utterly fair, even though it didn't have, you know, some of the bells and whistles of the sharpshooter, technically speaking, it was a better gun. It was definitely more accurate. It was better balanced. I mean, okay, it didn't look as gunny as the sharpshooter, but it was technically a better bit of kit, and you know, it was easier to charge, and it, you know, worked really well. And you could use it single hand or two hand. You know, it was like, it worked well for both types. So it was a much more balanced bit of kit. And now we've reached PlayStation 5, and we're barely 2 years old of the system, and it's already totally taken off with controllers. I mean, we've got the Dualsense, and that's I love my Dualsense, especially now that I've got the black one, because I love the white one, but the black one, oh. I know it doesn't actually change the functionality of the controller, but being a metalhead and having a black controller and considering the white controller, I was always cleaning it, because it would get so manky so quickly just from the oils from your hands, you know. And I look after my stuff, but yeah. And now, you know, just a wee while ago, we got all the word of the DualSense Edge. I mean, the DualSense Edge, I mean, you see it here behind me. It's a wonderful bit of kit. It really is very, very nice. And it's not too much of a departure from what we had. Of course, there are concerns among the praising aspects. I mean, the ability that we can change the sticks and therefore avoid, stick drift and so on, because we can actually get replacement sticks instead of having to replace the entire controller, because the controller itself is, a little over 200 quid. Ouch. But the main bone of contention, of course, with the Dualsense Edge is the idea that it's basically got the same battery as the Dualsense, but more is required from that battery, so the battery will run down a bit faster, which isn't great. But then when you consider that it's a pro controller, and by and large gameplay pro guys and girls, they keep their controllers plugged in basically to get round latency, because a signal from a button prompt going down a wire is technically faster than a signal from a button prompt moving through the Wi-Fi network. Through the Bluetooth network from controller to system. So the Bluetooth is slower than a wire, which you wouldn't think that'd be the case. You would figure that Bluetooth would be faster. You figure that transferring down a wire would be slower, older technology, but no. So technically speaking, if you're buying the Dualsense Edge, then if you want to play it at its best and play it at its fastest, because you're buying it for that competitive edge, you're going to be keeping that sucker plugged in anyway. So is that a moot point? I don't know. Maybe that's for you to be typing in the comment section. Oh, speaking of your involvement, I still haven't seen any entrants online for the clips competition, guys. Come on, I want to see your clips, or my clips, I don't know. Anyway, so now a couple of days ago we had CES, and CES came out and they showed this really great controller for those gamers amongst us who can't really use the Dualsense the way the rest of us use it, with being able to adapt for various types of disability, which I think is fantastic. I mean, this generation has really proven itself in being really good for people of differing ability stratas. Like for myself, I mean, I'm colorblind, and if I want to, I can actually change parts of games so I can see them better and be able to differentiate other things on the screen, so then I'm not going, what? I can't tell. It's like sometimes two things will be completely different colors for most normal people, but for someone like me, there'll be these two things that for me look exactly the same. I mean, one of the worst ones I have quite a lot of the time is being able to see usernames when I'm in an online battle and I'm on a team, and I'm always feared that I'm going to shoot my own team because I can't tell the name colours about, because when you're in the heat of battle you can't really read names so much. You're looking at the colour on the name, and sometimes the colours are too close for me and I can't tell them apart, which is one of the reasons why I started, a couple of years ago I started moving away from those kind of games, but now I can move back towards those games, which is nice. If Mag ever comes back. I always come back to Mag. But now we've got the Dualsense, which is awesome. We've got the Dualsense Edge, which is, going to be awesome in its own ways, but still has a ways to go. And obviously there's going to be software patches and stuff that probably will make better use of the battery, and maybe there'll be a battery upgrade at some point for maybe other you'll be able to swap out the battery for a better battery that's the same size as battery technology improves and gets more and more efficient. Who knows? That would be nice. And we've got this disability controller coming, but there's two tricks that Sony are missing, and have been missing for quite some time. One, Microsoft for so long has had their customized store, you know, and I would dearly love to have a Dualsense that's original Model 1 PlayStation Grey, with the control, with the sacred symbols and their original colours. The PlayStation button have the colour from the PlayStation symbol, you know, the multicolour PlayStation symbol. And for the touchpad to have a transparent PNG of my logo on it. That would be really nice. But here's the real kicker. If Sony is looking to really be inclusive to all gamers, and I speak as someone who married one of these people and who has friends of these people, Sony needs to bring about a left-handed Dualsense. Now, I made this pretty quickly on my phone, and I think it'd be a nice idea, and it'd be a relatively easy thing to do, I believe. Now, admittedly, I'm no hardware engineer, but I can't imagine it'd be that much to have a different mold, you know, where literally the holes are on different sides, and you know, the input, the circuit board just goes the other way. You know, it can't be that difficult. Now, obviously, you would have lesser numbers of this, because I believe it's something in the order of about 20% of humans, maybe 10% depending upon regional variation. But let's just say globally, I think it's about 20% of humans. You can Google that later yourselves and let me know whether or not I've got the statistic wrong, are left-handed. And I think it'd be nice for lefties, like my wife, like my best mate, like a lot of people I know. And actually think how many people in the world are actually left-handed. You don't know are left-handed. Did you know Whoopi Goldberg is left-handed? Did you know Keanu Reeves is left-handed? Yes, Keanu Reeves. And there are tons of left-handed celebrities. Look it up. You'd be surprised how many of them are actually lefties. Anyway, so a left-handed Dualsense, I think, would be really nice, and I don't see Microsoft doing that. And imagine a left-handed Dualsense that you could then customize on the store. I mean, talk about inclusive, you know? I think that would just be tippity top. Anyway, typey down below. Let Zimbo know what you think. By the way, let me know how you're thinking about the sharpness. Obviously, this is not the final form, because I know that all the way through this video up here, there's been some horrible green screen artifacting that I've got to fix somehow. I'm not quite sure what to do about it. I have tried moving things around and stuff and changing the light positions and that, but obviously it will require a little bit more experimentation. And I shall get to that soon as possible. But for now, hashtag support Scottish YouTubers, and of course, as always, aye, nae bother.